Welcome to another In the Mood to Scrap video, presented by Two Peas in a Bucket. My name is Janna Werner, and today we're going to create two scrapbooking pages, but it's only one design and two color schemes. It's not a secret that I love neutral color combinations on scrapbooking pages, but I'm also a big fan of those color schemes that I call bubblegum combinations. These bubblegum combinations are a mixture of pastels, but also neons and white, bright, light colors. I couldn't decide which of the color schemes I wanted to use when I was browsing for inspiration, so I decided to use both. I want to create a scrapbooking page or two scrapbooking pages, but it's the same design, only the colors will change. Doing this has the great advantage that you can see immediately how different a page looks just by changing the colors. As you can see on the scrapbooking pages on the bottom right, the photos have a different size, but I'm going to talk about that later. So let's start with the supplies that I'm going to use on these pages. Just be warned, I have quite a few of the new scrapbooking collections, like this Wild and Free collection pack from Glitz Design, and I'm not going to use all of them, but I was so excited when I held these in my hands that my first intention was to use, of course, everything. So you will see a lot of products in this video, but I'm not going to use all of them. Basically, the scrapbooking supplies that I'm using in this video are from Glitz Design, Wild and Free collection, Cut and Paste by Amy Tangerine, and Polka Dot Party by Dear Lizzie. I also got a few tags from L Studio Penelope collection. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. See here, that's how it's written, just in case I'm totally wrong, so you know what to order. Okay, I have this stamp by Amy Tangerine, and these are stickers, and actually I thought I would use these to create a background, but I'm not going to use them. I have tags and more stickers, and you see these are just so lovely, and I'm pretty sure you can understand how excited I was when I got all of these. I start with the neutral one, and I have a craft cardstock in 8.5 by 11. I have different sized photos, and you see that the big ones look very massive and too heavy for a craft cardstock, so I will take those for the light background. I'm arranging the photos so that the one meerkat looks at the other, that looks nicer than the other way around. Basically what I'm doing first is collecting different papers for the background. Placing the wood pattern paper horizontally lets your page appear calmer. So if you turn it around 90 degrees, the entire page looks longer and leaner, but it looks calmer if you use it like I'm doing it. I'm still stacking different pattern papers, and I want the background of the photos to be calm. So I'm using a paper with very light design. It has a very light grid on it. Actually now it's the polka dots, but the one that I'm going to use has a very light grid. If you're using neutral or dark photos, just avoid a very heavy background because it will always distract from the photos. Now I have this combination of papers that I want to use, and what I'm doing now is just marking the paper where I want to cut it. I don't need the entire pattern paper for my background, so I'm going to cut a stripe from this dotted paper. As I know exactly where this paper is going to be, I start gluing it down, and I'm using double-sided adhesive for that. I usually use glue, but I don't know why. In the last weeks I rarely use the glue, but always the double-sided adhesive. I guess it's because my hands are less dirty like that. And not that I really care about that, but I have no idea and no explanation, but this is how I do it at the moment. And I'm repeating this with the other two pattern papers as well. Marking the spot where I want to cut. And with this one, I had the idea to create a slightly distressed edge. And I'm not very good at tearing precisely, so I use a ruler for that. You put the ruler on top of the pattern paper, and then you tear the paper and you pull it towards the ruler, and like that it's a very clean but still torn edge, and you can see it here. If you have too much excess, you can just cut it with your scissor, and it still doesn't look too straight afterwards. I glued that strip down as well, and now I repeat the process with the last pattern paper, and this is the one that I was talking about with the very light grid. You can hardly see it. This is from Amy Tangerine's Cut and Paste collection. I attached all 3 papers, and now I can start decorating. Well, actually it's like 2 decorating processes. This is just creating more depth and adding highlights, but this is not really what I would call my embellishment decoration. So I have masking tape, and I'm applying that between the first and the second pattern paper, and I'm doing that to emphasize this part. And it's a very kind of harsh highlight because it's black and white, and this is a very high contrast and emphasizes immensely if you use it. I'm adding a few more highlights, and on the bottom part there's still enough space to add stickers, for example, and this is from the Glitz Design Wild and Free collection. I really like this pattern. It's very light, although it's black and white, or it's more gray, dark gray and white, but it's a very light pattern, so you can apply it to nearly anything and it doesn't look too much. I also add chipboard stickers on the top, the noted sign and the arrows right below that. I also glued down a piece of a tag, which you can see on the bottom right. Now it's time to decorate the middle part, and I'm still moving things around, so I'm not gluing anything down yet in the middle part. But my idea was to emphasize the part that I just showed, because there's a lot of space. For that I'm using a tag by L Studio, and the craft tag is actually a piece from a pattern paper by Amy Tangerine. I use my sewing machine to adhere them together, and my first thought was to just let the thread hang down, but I actually didn't like it because the page is very static and it did not really fit. Sometimes the thread really lightens up a page, but in this case it was just too much and too much information on the page. You don't have that much room on a 8.5 by 11 page. You need to, your design needs to be different than scrapping a 12 by 12 page, for example. With a 12 by 12 page you have, it's, for me at least, it's easier to create an even and harmonic look because you have so much space and you have a square, and that's much easier than scrapping with a rectangle. So I want to emphasize the bottom right a bit more because there's a lot of space on the bottom part, and I'm using an arrow stamp for that. I use a light gray because I don't want it to be too heavy. I also added on the left side, on the top left side, and then I place my, it's a cheated journaling of it, right? If you use a stamp, I mean, for me it still counts as somehow journaling. I know this can be discussed, but for me it's like that. I'm adding the title, and the title is Awe, because honestly, meerkats are the cutest things I've ever seen. So we went to this animal park recently, and they had this, I don't know how you call that in English, but this huge area where they live, and I think we stood there for at least 30 minutes just watching them. It was hilarious. They are so funny. Okay, back to the layout. So I also added handwritten journaling and a few arrows. Now this is actually the finished page. It's quite static and straight. The color scheme fits the photos, so it's a nice scrapbooking page, and you can totally put that in an album. But yeah, I know it's a bit boring, right? So my idea was, what would this page look like if you use the bubblegum color combination on it? As I already said in the beginning of the video, the design is the same. So the process of creating this page is all in all the same than with the neutral one. I'm not going to show you the entire process again, just here at the start. Again, I'm collecting different pattern papers, and the pattern papers, or the color of these papers, is related to the mood board that I created, that you saw in between and in the beginning of the video. I'm using the bigger photos on this page now. And here you can see it's exactly the same. I have the different papers and highlights, and now I start creating the middle part. But what I wanted to say about the photos is that bigger photos on a neutral or dark page can look too heavy. So if you have huge photos, I mean, okay, these are not huge, but compared to the entire layout, they are quite big. And if you imagine having the big photos on the left scrapbooking page, it would be so heavy and so dark because there's also this black hole on the left photo. If you use a light background and on a white cardstock, it's not that heavy. So it's a good idea to use the dark photos on a light background. On this layout, I emphasized the same parts. I used the same shapes and embellishments as on the page on the left side. I have these tags and I wanted to round the corners, and yeah, I noticed that I should maybe get my corner jumper instead of my crocodile to do so. And I'm rounding the edges because this fits the bubblegum style of the page. It looks more playful with round corners. Because of the size of my photos, I do not have enough space on the left side on my page to stamp those arrows. I should have done that before gluing the middle part down onto the page. But okay, well, now it's like that, and I will just stamp onto the bottom right part. And again, I'm using the light gray ink to emphasize but not to overemphasize this part of the layout. I added the handwritten journaling and the stamped journaling, and now I'm only missing the title. I was not sure which of the colors I wanted to use, and if you have the same problem, you can put the title on a ruler in both colors, and then you can just move the ruler on the layout, and then you can see very well which fits better. Here the red is way too harsh and too vibrant. It creates too much tension and doesn't really underline the playful note of the scrapbooking page. Therefore, I went with the light mint color. And here are both scrapbooking pages. And you can see that there's a huge difference just by choosing a different color scheme. And I have to say that I prefer the right color scheme, but the smaller photos. A great way to add more elegance to the neutral color scheme could be, for example, to add splatters in gold, for example, with spray or acrylic paints or glitter, foil, anything that would enrich the entire layout and lets it appear friendlier. It looks not really friendly. It's a bit cold because of the neutrals. And the bubblegum layout is really friendly and happy. And here's my challenge for you this week. Get inspired by one of the two layouts and scrap a neutral or a bubblegum page. And if you like, you can do both, of course. I'm looking forward to seeing your creations. See you soon. Bye bye.